They're the chosen people that are able to have this lifestyle, because everybody else who has to make money doing other things that are not influencing are not going to have the bandwidth, the money, the time, the energy to maintain a life like this. Hi everyone, welcome back to Project No Buy. In this video today, we're going to be looking at the kitchen gadgets and must-haves and doing a little reaction to those. So, this is a continuation of the series on wanting things, why I used to want things, how these videos can make people want stuff, and alas, I didn't quite finish all the categories in the month of March, hence doing a little bit more here in the month of April. And this might kind of morph into a long-standing series on this channel. I think the end point of this will be examining how this content can influence and why these circumstances, what we see in these videos, are not normal. And that's maybe where we're going to come to rest after going through the remaining categories of things to want. So kitchen gadgets is what we're doing today. I think later in April we're going to go through stationery, maybe. Home decor, just kidding, all of this might be happening in May. I'm losing track of the schedule. All right, let's get into it.
Let's talk about my kitchen must-haves, my essentials, my favorite appliances. Let's go. One of the most important items in my household is this air fryer. Oh my gosh, 10 out of 10. I am not exaggerating when I say I use this air fryer every day, and this is the best one that I found at its price point. This is a 9-core air fryer, and what makes it special is that you can cook 2 separate items at once at different settings as well, or you can just sync both sides and cook one large item. I am not a coffee girl. I've quite literally always been a tea girl, so a kettle for me is an essential. This kettle is really easy to use because there's different settings for different types of teas, and on top of that, it's just super aesthetically pleasing. I recently started baking, and I've been looking for a mixer for a while now.
So if you're tracking so far, all these appliances are by the same brand.
If you've ever looked for a mixer, you know that there's endless options, and I'm already indecisive as it is, so this was a really hard decision, but I'm so glad that I ended up with this beautiful by Drew Barrymore mixer. I was looking for something super high quality but easy to use since I'm new to baking, and this was the perfect fit for me. My toaster gets used daily as well, and I love that there's already settings for a bagel or frozen items.
Again, with the same brand of toaster.
So breakfast is just always really quick and easy using this toaster. The beautiful by Drew Barrymore collection at Walmart is my favorite. The color options are to die for. The appliances are aesthetically pleasing, they're affordable, and they're great quality. You guys can shop all of these products at the link in my bio. Bye.
All right, so of course the link in the bio and Walmart partner, lo and behold, it is in the description of this video as well, so there's that, you know, it's hashtagged. I do also see other products that I know to be on Amazon. I know one of them, the tea kind of container and the chasen, because I have it from Amazon, so I know firsthand, and I'm sure all of those are going to be linked in her bio as well. And, you know, there was all these stories about how the mixer, she wanted to get into baking, and she was choosing between different options, but landed on this one, and she's so glad she did. And I mean, of all the kind of contrived things there, you have all these appliances by the same brand and are a partner of the store that sells this brand. And so, again, none of these are kitchen must-haves unless you actually need them. And certainly this brand in any of these appliances is not a must-have. I've never heard of this brand. I don't have anything by this brand. I am totally okay with mismatched kitchen accessories as well. The presentation of this is something aspirational, I think, is just kind of ludicrous again. Like, it's not normal for most people to go out and buy the whole kitchen set at once even, and consider the colors of their appliances for their kitchen design. And, you know, maybe it's normal in some circles. I'm not trying to say that if you did that, it's abnormal, or that if you had the time and resources and the stability or whatever to do that, I'm not saying it's bad. But I am saying that the presentation of this on social media for the general eyes of the public can present a skewed idea of what's normal and what's aspirational. I don't really even know the price points of these products. It's kind of irrelevant because the prompt for this was the kitchen must-haves, right? And in this kitchen must-haves video, all we got was a series of appliances by the same brand with the same kind of touchscreen technology and the same color palette. And this, to me, I mean, is there anything more disingenuous? I don't even know if I need to say any more.
5 of my favorite Amazon kitchen finds that are so beautiful, yet so functional. First are these gorgeous antique-style salt and pepper grinders. Not only are they such a statement piece above a stove or on a countertop, but the brass turns a beautiful patina over time, and it's such a fun gadget to use. Next are my favorite knives. Any chef will tell you you only need these 3 knives in your kitchen. They come as a set, and they look stunning on this magnetic stand. They are super sharp and top quality. Next is this set of 4 nesting bowls. They're my favorite thing to use on a charcuterie board or for sauces, and the flower shape is just adorable. Then we have this gorgeous marble container that's multi-purpose. It's real stone, so it's nice and heavy. You can use it to hold and display cooking utensils, and I also love to use it to hold a bottle of wine when I'm hosting. And last are these travertine salt and pepper shakers. They're made of real stone, so they've got a beautiful texture and they look good on any table.
Okay, once again, beautiful kitchen, beautiful aesthetic. What gets me with this video, what's funny, is so funny to me, is that the first and last products are both salt and pepper shakers. And so that's a red flag right there of like, this is not a normal person's kitchen. I don't know how many people have multiple sets of salt and pepper shakers and or why that would be necessary. And you know, that's just not the life I live. I'm not a girl who gets it. If you know, you know. So anyway, the not so basic Amazon kitchen finds. I mean, we already know this is a red flag, those of you on this channel, right? If anything is an Amazon list of finds or must-haves, right? That's probably an immediate scroll, generally speaking. But I guess the lens of this particular video is the hyper-aestheticized kitchen where everything is nice, everything is high quality or luxury, you know, that gives the appearance of this luxury aesthetic, and that this kind of look can be curated with the right Amazon products. And I do actually feel like this is a danger territory. I feel like I might get a lot of pushback on something like this, featuring something like this, because these are beautiful products that somebody might actually need and have a use for, right? Like you can't really say that a salt and pepper shaker is completely useless, that it's not a need, that it's not a must-have. Like for most people, a salt and pepper shaker probably is a reasonable must-have. A set of knives is a reasonable must-have. I don't know that any chef will tell you that these are the 3 you need, but it is reasonable, right, for a kitchen to have 3 knives. You know, the nesting bowls might be a little more debatable as far as whether everybody actually needs nesting bowls. I mean, bowls in general, again, certainly something reasonable to have. A marble container that's multi-purpose, you know, holding your dishwares, your whatever they're called, kitchen tools. Again, it's hard to argue with any of this until you get to the fact that there's 2 salt and pepper shakers. But it's more the hyper-aestheticism of the kitchen that was a trap that I was more liable to fall into when I was more at the height of a bad shopping habit. And seeing this, watching this example of somebody who acquired all these things because of their looks, was not a positive thing for my shopping mentality, let's put it that way. And consuming this kind of content, while it might be helpful in some scenarios, you know, if you have the same aesthetic and you're looking, you know, you don't already own a salt and pepper shaker, you don't already own an appliance caddy or whatever, a kitchen tool caddy, and you're looking for these products in a legitimate way, like that might be the one scenario that this content is genuinely helpful. However, once you have those things, it's not helpful to be presented with better looking examples of these things. I don't think it's normal or aspirational to change the style of your kitchen every few years, every few seasons, you know, I don't intend to change my kitchen style ever, to be honest, because I have different priorities. And while it might be unreasonable to never change the style of your house or kitchen or bedroom ever, I guess my personal relationship with these things is kind of changing. And I do kind of prioritize the attitude of longevity over exploration in these regards, in these areas with things to consume. And I certainly won't be doing it through Amazon. If that's maybe the take home of this video, is that if the time comes where I want to update my kitchen aesthetic, it can certainly be done in a more sustainable way than finding these not so basic Amazon kitchen finds through influencers marketing these aesthetics to our eyeballs. Okay, filming me didn't want to get into this, but editing me kind of does, so I will also say that I have never curated my kitchen based on aesthetics, despite having periods of higher interest in shopping, and even times of trying to make things more aesthetic in my life. It didn't even work as far as the kitchen goes, partly because I did have motivations to try to do things sustainably, even in my periods of shopping more. So I still have mismatched dishes and appliances that don't match, things that I got in college, etc. I would suspect that even if somebody tries to curate a perfectly aesthetic kitchen, it doesn't always work out without a lot of waste and unsustainable practices, which is not a great thing to demonstrate as well. Let's go to the next video, another Amazon kitchen finds I don't regret buying.
Amazon kitchen finds I don't regret buying. This egg organizer is amazing because I hate fussing with egg cartons and it automatically rolls down. This dispenser filters out my water and it also comes out cold. I love this little mug and vase. It's just aesthetic for me. It gives me so much joy. And this rolling drying rack doesn't take up space, which is awesome. And this bamboo utensil organizer, literally, you have to have it. And I also love these chopsticks and Asian spoons from Amazon.
All right, I guess the vibe that I'm getting from all of these kitchen videos online is that it is all about the aesthetic. It is all about that curation of products that we buy because they look nice, because they're cute, because we might see them online and think that it's aspirational to have such a curated kitchen rather than things that we need. Again, we're dipping into organization territory with that egg container for easy access, right? There is a practical reason that this creator gives to justify the egg container. And I personally have never had issues with the access of my eggs in the normal egg carton and would not benefit from this kitchen must-have. I think we're going to be seeing this again in another one of these videos because you can't escape the kitchen organization when you are looking at things to want in terms of kitchenwares and gadgets. So we have a water dispenser for filtered cold water. I think a lot of people have these on their fridges already. We do not, and we survive just fine. Again, I think I made a comment in a previous video about how the right to clean water should be something we preserve at a basic human level, I guess. Like, we shouldn't feel the need to buy the filters. And, you know, if we do, then we do, right? Like, personally, our household has done a water test to determine whether or not this is a product that we actually need, because the days of influenced purchasing in our household are hopefully behind us. And so we did do the water test. We have ascertained that our tap water is safe, and so we just drink the tap water. If we want it to be cold, we'll put it in the fridge or add ice from our fridge that makes the ice. You know, we're not making fancy ice over here. And so this might be something you need and you don't regret. And I'm not here to say that each individual project is a bad idea, but the cumulative presentation of these as must-haves that I don't regret buying is something that can be grating on our nerves of conscious consumerism, on our resolve of conscious consumerism. What else did we have? We had an aesthetic mug and vase. Again, if you don't need a mug, then that's not a good buy. If you don't need a vase, that's not a good buy either. That vase looks like a tip-over hazard with the base being so much smaller than the middle, so I would personally not risk that purchase, no matter how cute it is. The roll-out drying rack, I mean, maybe. It does look rather small, so you put that bowl and the cutlery on it for one person and you're pretty much full. And yet you have a silverware drawer with this tray that looks like it's got enough silverware for 6 people in there. So, you know, it's kind of a contradiction there. Are you really going to be drying dishes so often, you know, a single dish and single set of silverware, that you need that roll-out drying rack? Or is this more of a wipe your dishes after washing or use a dishwasher household? You know, like, it's just, again, the eclectic presentation of things that you may or may not have a use for. And I do think that on balance, seeing this kind of content leads to more purchases than somebody would otherwise make if they hadn't seen the content. And I already kind of had this discussion in the comments of my Amazon must-haves video, that it's not about the individual items so much as it is the environment of influence that this is curating and the disingenuous presentation, right? I don't actually think that all of these things are used by all of these creators, or that all of them are as appreciated as they are made out to be, or as life-changing, or as helpful, or as must-have-y as they're presented to be. And if they weren't being paid through the affiliate links or the Walmart partnerships or whatever it is, then they wouldn't have this set of items. I could go deeper into it and just, you know, delve into these profiles and see if the Walmart partner person has always had those appliances or has updated or changed out any of these, or, I'm sure there are contradictions abounding in many of this type of content that we see online. But I guess going back to how I specifically used to be influenced by this kind of stuff, I think the other thing with kitchenwares, kitchen gadgets, is that it is usually always practical in some way. The drying rack, I have a similar kind of sink setup draining rack for things like pasta or berries when you're washing them, or vegetables, and that was an influence purchase off of Amazon. I bought a ramen bowl one time that I ended up returning because I realized that I didn't truly need it, and that the pain of storing it and maintaining it would be worse than hanging onto it. Again, that was an Amazon order that I was influenced, and because these purchases are fairly small and they have some practical implication, and oftentimes they look really nice, right? Like, I was lulled into that feeling that if I bought the beautiful ramen bowl, that I would suddenly have a beautiful kitchen, or a more beautiful kitchen, when in reality the beauty of the kitchen comes through maintaining the cleanliness and the organization, the lack of clutter, not having too much stuff in your cupboards. And, if you currently have a set of mismatched dishes, I don't think the solution is to get rid of those and get a whole set of matching dishware. I think the solution, as with most other things, is to use up what you have, and or find a sustainable way to swap things out. And this is not to push you towards the revolving door of resale or donating and decluttering and thrifting things, but I think in terms of why we buy things, just the aesthetics is not a good enough answer, at least not for somebody with the goal of not buying and being a conscious consumer and decreasing one's environmental impact. And those might not be your goals, in which case you're not a girly that gets it. Conscious consumerism girly. All right, let's see what's next.
Every cut on a plastic cutting board like this is shedding microplastics into your food.
Oh no, it's the toxics angle, the toxins, the microplastics. Yeah, okay.
A few years ago, I started swapping out everyday products for cleaner options when I realized how many toxins were in my kitchen. Being healthy isn't just about food, it's also about what you're cooking with. I spend a lot of time in my kitchen, so I knew I had to make changes. I ditched my plastic cutting boards, which leached over 1,500 microplastic particles into my food every use. Now I use Caraway's wooden cutting boards, which are naturally antimicrobial and plastic-free. I also swapped my plastic utensils for wooden ones without a plastic coating, and replaced my Teflon cookware, which I learned that one single scratch can release over 9,100 microplastics. Now I cook with Caraway's ceramic cookware, which is free from PFAs and other toxic chemicals. I can cook healthy meals without worrying about toxins. So I encourage you to stop cooking your healthy meals on harmful products. Make the switch to Caraway and see how these small swaps in your kitchen can make a big difference in reducing microplastics in your everyday routine.
Of course, it's a Caraway partnership. Oh. Again, if you know, you know. The Caraway set of ceramic nonstick cookware is one of my major influence purchase regrets. I've talked about it ad nauseum already. And even as recently as last year during the no-buy, I did some of this shenanigans of plastic swapping, where we got rid of the plastic dishware for our kids and replaced it with metal cups, and we just let them use the regular old plates and bowls. So, there's a higher hazard of breaking, but they're using the ceramics instead of the plastic now, because we were noticing that, we had cut stuff on the plates and they were flaking, and there are some kind of legitimate worries that are to be had regarding kitchenware and consuming toxins, because it's to do with things we put in our mouths, our bodies directly, right? And so, this is a valid concern to some extent, but it's not a concern that's best solved with Caraway cookware, and I can tell you that firsthand, right? I'm an expert in this, in this field of regret. But, we did look into that and solve the problem through stainless steel pans that are not sponsored and hopefully will last a lifetime, unlike coated ceramic cookware, which needs to be replaced. And she's not telling you that. She's not telling us how the coating is meant to degrade over time, or that's just how the nature of ceramic coating works, is that they don't last forever. And so you will have to replace these pans when there is an alternative that you don't have to replace. And so she ain't telling us that. The wooden cutting board and utensils or whatever, there are multiple ways to get these tools. They don't have to come from Caraway cookware. But I just find this method of marketing so kind of slimy, because we don't want to be consuming microplastics. We don't want to be consuming toxins. We do want to cook kind of fresh, wholesome food. I do see a little bit of crunchy granola conflict when we're talking about toxins in our food and then we're cooking what appears to be sausage, which is one of the products that's more known to have nitrites in them. And, you know, it's kind of a, maybe that's on purpose. Maybe it's to convey that we're not too crunchy granola, even though we care about toxins in our kitchen. We're not going to be too concerned about carcinogens in meat products. But, yeah, the whole aesthetic presentation as well with the flowers and with the mesh bag for groceries, and it's just another realm of not quite realism for most people. And we can't curate our entire lives based on this, and certainly not by buying a set of Caraway cookware. Like, that's just, it's getting a little into predatory territory in my mind when we have this kind of method of attack for the marketing. Kitchen essentials you never knew you needed. Right, let's see what these non-essentials are. Alright, so once again, a very aesthetic presentation, and a lot of these products aren't necessary unless you care about the aesthetics. And, you know, I guess that's the topic of the day. If you can be manipulated to care enough about how things look and curating that perfection, then you could be sold these products. Things like the sponge holder and the absorbent kind of countertop holders are things that a lot of people just do without and live without. And are they useful? Are they practical? Maybe. You know, maybe a lot of people already have them as well. But again, I'm coming at this from the lens of you don't actually need these things to live a good life. And so, you know, let me be living proof that I don't have the sponge holder, I don't have the absorbent plate for my counter, and things are still just fine. I don't have the tea towel holder, we just stick the towel where the holder goes. You know, we close the door on the top of the towel. We don't have the pot and lid organizer. We don't have too many pans is how we avoid the pot avalanche. We do store them in the cupboard with the lids on. We do have a spoon rest by our oven. It doesn't have a lid holder, so, you know, we just set the lids on the counter itself, but, you know, you got me there. I do have a spoon rest for the cooking utensil. We don't have a storage tub for rubbish bags. We store our rubbish bags in another rubbish bag. Or, unless this is trash bags, which we store in the box that they come in from the grocery store. So, no need for a product to keep the product in, especially not in somewhere where you have it stored in a cupboard anyway, right? So you never see it until you're opening the cupboard. I don't know. This is just a bridge too far for me. They also have the soap and sponges stored in acrylic containers as well. I just could never get on board with that. Again, no shade to you if you are on board with that. We also do have reusable bowl covers. So we don't use cling wrap or disposable products like that. So again, I can't really be mad at something like that. And I'm actually kind of surprised to see these colorful ones in a video that's otherwise so aesthetically focused. So that's interesting. All right, last video here. Okay, so the way I sourced these videos was to just do what I usually do for this series and just type in the kitchen must-haves or whatever, or kitchen gadgets might have been, and just react to some of the first videos that show up. So I wasn't looking for organization or restocking, or I wasn't kind of cherry picking. I just chose off of the front page. And here we are, we have a restock and organizing Amazon essentials video. And I can't see these anymore without kind of feeling that they reek of privilege in a way. And I don't like to make too much of the discourse on here about levels of privilege and classism, because I don't think it's necessarily, I think it's going to make people feel bad about themselves regardless of where they're at. And I don't really like that. I'm not trying to do that. But I guess this kind of valuing of aesthetics and organization and tools and products and curating, and I would almost say it's a hyperfixation on kind of, dare I say, the luxury look of something like a fridge. I guess to me it just kind of makes me think that I couldn't maintain something like this without sacrificing other aspects of my life. And for me, if I've had time to clean the fridge, then, it's been a good week. And, things will look better if they're clean, obviously. And, this is a tidy fridge. And I guess part of it is because these creators are making their living making videos like this, right? So cleaning the fridge is part of their job, right? Like, it's become some kind of weird, what is that word? It starts with a D, dystopia, where some people are able to make a job out of luxuriizing their home, making their home luxurious and clean and tidy. And some other people are here kind of fighting to keep things clean while they are trying to live their lives and make enough money to afford the food that goes in the fridge, regardless of how it's packaged. And I guess, it does feel a little bit Squid Game to me, or, I haven't actually seen the show. So it seems like the haves and the have-nots are kind of being showcased, like the haves are the ones making the content and getting paid for it, and therefore, like, they're in this cycle. They're the chosen people that are able to have this lifestyle, because everybody else who has to make money doing other things that are not influencing are not going to have the bandwidth, the money, the time, the energy to maintain a life like this. And so I guess that's why these restocks and organization videos kind of make me feel a little weird inside. It's not that all of this wouldn't be nice to have. In fact, that's why I think these videos do so well, is because they are aspirational. It would be a lot of people's dream to just come home to a fridge like this that's stocked with all the fancy beverages, the creamers, the fun drinks, the yogurts organized on the sides, the snack packs, the Lazy Susan in the fridge, these containers that drain the juice out of your pickles. Again, like, some of these actually do feel like they have practical uses. People who eat olives regularly and fish them out of the juice, like, I could see that being something that I would have been influenced to buy in times past. It would have seemed like a really good idea. But just buying the olive container would not buy me this fridge or this kitchen or this food, or, not that I would want to be eating all of it. Again, my point on not eating processed meats for various reasons still stands. But and again, that's not a superiority thing, it's just a personal choice thing. You can look at my video on the right amount of crunchy granola if you are interested in hearing me rant about that a little more. But anyway, this is aspirational, and a lot of these tools or gadgets or must-haves, organizational features, are something that seem like a good idea if you use them regularly. The drinks are selected for the label as well. I think that was one of the comments, does this person select their groceries based on the aesthetics rather than what's inside? It is a very aesthetically pleasing beige and white fridge at the end of the day. And, maybe it doesn't make everybody think of dystopia and systemic inequality, but maybe that's just the kind of mood I'm in today. All right. To leave you with a final note that might be helpful, if you too see these restocks and fridge gadget videos and, kitchen appliance videos and have those kind of feelings, I think it actually does help in the efforts of not buying any of this stuff, not feeling influenced, because it's kind of a reminder, right? Like, it's almost seeing the other end of the scale, where if we consider ourselves here with the messy kitchens, with the mismatched aesthetics, with the struggling to make dinner on a regular basis and looking for ways that kitchen life could be easier, and we see these examples on the other side, I think it's oftentimes presented to such an extreme that we realize that we can't get to point B by buying the stuff, right? Like, I think we've gone too far. It's gone too far. The influencers have lost touch because I can't even be influenced by this anymore. It just doesn't even work. It's not even aspirational anymore because I know it's not real and it's not attainable for somebody like me. All right, with that positive and cheerful note, I will say bye for now and see you in the next one.